One. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Uncensored Critic podcast. Thank you so much for joining me again for another episode. I really appreciate your time and for tuning in. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And today we have another great episode for you with another great guest. And it's a dear friend and former colleague of mine, Miss Seema Bowri, a talented actress from the East Midlands and I stress the East Midlands because that was her part at the National Theatre. Seema is an actress who graduated from the University of Birmingham with a BA honours in theatre arts, drama and dance. She also trained in contemporary dance during her undergrad days. Across screen, she has worked in short films such as All About Me and Find the Light, the latter directed by Abdullah Khan, who's also been on the show. Doctors, The Bill, Emmerdale, and Little English, which is currently in cinemas and will be available on demand for your television sets at some point this year. And of course, on theatre, she has appeared in something called Vitamin D, which was nominated for London Pub Theatre's Standing Ovation Award, a play called Don't Look at My Sister and Arrange That Marriage in it, Idle Pop, Croydon Avengers, and of course, My Country, a work in progress, originally on stage at the National Theatre and then translated into a BBC Two show in 2017. It's something that we were both part of, both on stage and screen, and something we're going to talk about today. So, Seema, hello.
Hi, how are you doing, Oliver?
Yeah, great to see you again. How you been?
Yeah, really good, really good. It's busy. It's a busy time with our feature film, Little English, at the moment, which I'm going to plug. It's been playing across UK cinemas since the end of March. So I've been involved in lots of the Q&As after the show because the making of the show was was really special in that it was very low budget, and now it's been launched across the UK doing a cinema tour. So and it's been particularly hard for the director and the producers to get this film out there because both the leads in this film are brown, and not to be controversial, but brown people, we don't sell films apparently if you're leads. Unless you're with a white actor, which is why Bend It Like Beckham works really well. It was such a hit film. But because we've got two brown leads in this film, and there aren't that many white characters in this film, I think the big bosses that sit at the gate of cinema and what can get out there weren't particularly keen. So actually, it was social media pressure that forced the hand, and we've been on all over the place.
Great. Well, I've seen the trailer and everything. I admit I haven't seen the film yet. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm sure we'll talk about that more a little bit later, but it's a really, from the 2 minutes I've seen of it, it's like a really heartwarming, really lovely love letter to a blending of communities and how the two can work together in a way. It's a really lovely thing.
It's about a girl that comes from India and gets married here, which I guess some people will go, oh, okay, it's that kind of story. But actually, she fights back. She comes to her family, and actually her husband runs off on the first night, on their wedding night. So she's then left with his family, who hide the fact that their son, or rather my son, has run away. I try and get her to do all the house chores while I go to work. And basically she fights back. I've taken her passport. I don't want her to tell anyone. And she goes out and tries to find her husband. And in that process, finds love with my other son. And there's a whole backstory to this film. So that's the kind of rom-com. It's a comedy. But then some of the side stories are... they pull at the heartstring in quite a serious way. My younger son's been to jail. I also do have a husband, and there is a whole backstory to what's happening to him, which does leave people getting quite emotional. So it's warming, and it's also quite emotional for some people to watch. So all good, really good.
No, it has a lot of promise. I can't wait to see it. It's going to be good. So we'll get on to that a bit later, but you mentioned that word there, backstory, and something we were talking about just before we came on. So just before I give you the starter question, let's just recount what you were saying just before about, you said you had a bit of a break for about 6 or 7 years before you got the job at the National where I met you. And you said every part comes with a backstory. So would you mind just repeating the conversation we had off camera?
Of course, yeah. No, I was saying that I guess out there in the world, we see an actor and we go, God, they're in a job and they're doing a job, but behind that is your own story as me, Seema. So, I, like I said, had taken a break from acting because I had my first son. This was very soon after I was in the Bill for 3 years. So my son Dylan was born, and then 16 months later, my son Rishi was born. And unfortunately, I don't think I was listening in sex education. I didn't realize that both the second one could come so quickly after the first one.
Right.
And suddenly I found that there was no way I could juggle acting with 2 children at home. Right. Because the thing is, when you first become a mum, you're so flabbergasted and at the kind of process of this newborn and what you got to do and how much of it is instinct, but also things that you should know. They don't come with a manual. So suddenly you're sleep deprived. That's the biggest killer of being a mum. They've got their own hours, they've got their own schedule. And then in the midst of that, I had Rishi. And then I literally thought, there's no way I can go to auditions and prep and really dedicate myself to being an actor. As you know, it's not just about getting the job. It's also about keeping your skills sharpened and alive. And there wasn't, all of that got thrown out and put in a suitcase somewhere. And I had these 2 boys. So, and then I was saying to you that when they were 2 and 3, my husband, Vinny, got an amazing opportunity to go out to the Middle East because he's a pharmacist, but also he's an IT. So we decided to pack not only our bags, but our whole house and move out there.
Yeah.
He was out there on a 5-year contract. I had bought this idea of just having a completely different life for a while I bring up the kids. But then a year into being out there, or maybe a little bit longer, my youngest got diagnosed with autism and he wasn't talking. So the right thing to do, because there's no, as much as there's a lot of money out there and it all comes from oil, there's no intervention out there. Nothing's free, everything has to be paid for. And actually the best intervention was back here in the UK. So I then decided with my husband to bring the kids back, move the kitchen sink back, get him the speech and language therapy that he needed. He's also quite academic, so he needed to still go to school, which he did down the road from us, but he needed the intervention kind of on the side. So I'd been out of the game for 7 years, I think, nearly 7 years. And one day the phone rang. It was my agent who said to me, Seem, it's Wendy Spon at the National, who cast you in the Bill. She really wants to see you because they're having problems casting the character East Midlands in this play called My Country. I didn't know much about it. I did get sent a bit of material to prep. And I got sent a couple of the character voices because obviously it was a verbatim show. And I just got told to learn it. I didn't really think about it being the National. I didn't think about it being Rufus Norris. I kind of, well, there was 2 things going on. On one hand, I thought, well, it's lovely to get back in, and some of that skill I just had to kind of pick up from where I remembered. But actually, it comes back very quickly when you've worked quite robustly and you've trained and you've already worked professionally, even if it's a few years ago. What I was actually more worried about was, what am I going to talk about when we have a chat? Because what was your last job, Seema? Well, it was 7 years ago. And actually, what have you been doing in the meantime? Well, I've been changing nappies and taking kids to school and building a network with other parents. And actually, I've not been in the acting game at all. So, but anyway, actually in the room, Rufus was gorgeous, really not judgmental. And I think I was quite nervous about being judged, because generally when you talk to people about being a mum, a lot of people in the business will switch off.
Really?
Well, that's what I used to find. Talking about being talking about yourself as a parent and being an artist is never exciting. People just want to know about the artist. And I think that's just because, you know, the impatient side of us doesn't want to know that it's hard, that, you know, hard, that, you know, it's hard to prep, and you've got, you know, children and their problems going on in the background. People don't really want to know, because essentially we're expected to just get on with it. But he was great. We talked a little about Rish and why I came back. In fact, I remember doing a lot of talking and he just listened. And then literally the next day, I got a call saying they really want you to do it.
Wow.
Which is always a lovely feeling. But I'm going to be honest, I did completely at that point poo myself. Not because I thought I couldn't do the job. And I've always wanted to work at the National. I think all of us, it's like one of your top 5 things to do. I just didn't know who was going to look after my kids, because they were quite young at that point. I think they were 5 and 6. So I was like, well, I can't afford an au pair. My other half's got a full-time job. He'd literally just got back from Doha at that point. And he was like, well, I can't sit at home. Someone's got to pay the mortgage. So we then went down the route of having an au pair, which was scary because I knew nothing about au pairs. But anyway, because I've got a really supportive partner. And by the way, the other part to this backstory was I was booked to go to Florida once my country started touring with Vin's family. My father-in-law had paid for 20 people to fly to Florida, have these 2 massive villas and have this amazing time. So at the time, I remember saying to him, Dad, I'm really sorry, but I've got a job at the National. And none of them have got anything to do with the arts and theatre. And he was like, well, can't you just do it later? And I went, no, it really doesn't work like that. Nope. He was great. He was like, okay, fine. You know, we'll find someone else to replace you, or I'll cancel your ticket. But yeah, anyway, so when I stepped into the National, suddenly I actually, if I'm honest, as someone who's quite confident and outgoing, I remember that first week at the National, I was just terrified, because I just remember feeling like such a fake. I just didn't feel like an actor at all. And I think that's because, you know, I think sometimes we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to kind of sound like, you know, we're busy, we've been mixing with all the right people, and, you know, you're nodding at me and smiling. But there is you know, actors have to have a sell in them to say that, you know, you might not be working, but you're very much in the game. And the truth was that I'd not been in the game. I had nothing to talk about. So I was, but, you know, everyone else in the cast, you know, they were amazing. And in fact, I'm also going to let you in on a little story. So we started in Glasgow. And that was where our tour kicked off. So we played at the National. We'd had an amazing reception. We kicked off on tour. And that day, my family were leaving to go to Florida. And I remember I was very happy to pack my bags. I was like, God, I've never had time to myself. It'll be amazing on tour. But when they called me from the airport, I completely fell apart. So it was the first day in Glasgow. It was our first show. I remember turning up to the theatre, and Penny and Laura were there in the dressing room, and my face looked like what it had been doing, and I'd been crying for about 5 hours. Because I remember saying to my husband, it actually feels like you're taking the kids away and you're flying off, and I'm never going to see you again. And he was like, that's stupid. This was your choice. And yes, it is weird. Yeah, we are coming back. But also he was like, I know it is a bit weird without you here, because, you know, we're quite a close family and there's so many of us. But he was like, you know, you got to remember that you wanted to do this. So I don't know why you're crying. But yeah, I remember Laura and Penny saying to me, look, babe, you want to cry, you have a blooming good cry. And then, they didn't judge me. We all got on really well. In fact, in some ways, it brought me closer to them. Because, you know, Laura and Penny are both very established actresses. They've both done the National previous to My Country. So, and then they didn't play any of that bravado. You know, they're very, you know, feet on the ground, and just said to me, just, you know, you enjoy this for what it is, and, you know, go for it. And I had an amazing time on that job for that very reason, that, you know, nobody was poncy, no one was judgmental. If I wanted to go off and have quiet time, that was fine. If I wanted to, you know, have a little ball in the corner, which never happened after that, actually. I fully enjoyed the fact that I had my time on tour, and my, you know, I didn't have to think about the kids. But yeah, that's the backstory. So yeah, you know, but since then I've done so many jobs, and now when somebody does walk into the rehearsal room feeling a little bit like, well, I'm new, I'm always really careful that I bring them in, because it's a horrible feeling whether you've been, you know, whatever your life before you walked into that space, you know, you're a professional, you got that job, and you're entitled to be there. And I'm always really careful to make sure I make people feel welcome. Because that's when, you know, you can work, when you're feeling safe and wanted.
Yeah, no, I resonate completely. I remember the very first day we all gathered in rehearsal. We stood in a big circle in the rehearsal room, and you got Rufus there, and of course Carol Ann Duffy was part of it as well. She co-wrote it. She was poet laureate at the time. I remember us all standing in this big circle, and I thought, wait, hang on a sec, because I was there on a work placement from uni. First of all, I was thinking, how did this happen? And B, I was thinking, what? How did I get here exactly? What's going on? And I remember Rufus sort of standing at the front of the room going, all right, everyone, thanks so much for coming. This is My Country Work in Progress. I'm a bit nervous because I have no fucking idea what we're going to be doing.
Yeah, it's true. They turned up rehearsal day one literally with a blank canvas, and then I mean, you'll remember through rehearsal, Caroline wrote that show, and Rufus was also co-writing. Then they'd turn up and we try things, and things would work, things they wouldn't, and then stitching it all together. I mean, you know, it was, I used to look at him as a director and think, you're in quite a scary place at the moment, because you've got no idea what kind of final shape this is going to take. We rehearsed so many songs that never got used.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. The way all the verbatim was going to fit. And verbatim theatre is quite, I mean, it's quite, you have to be careful how you do it. You know, it had to still speak to the audience and feel alive, rather than just kind of disappear into itself and just be a whole hash of voices talking about Brexit. But no, we had a really good response from that. It wasn't everybody's kind of flavor of what they wanted to go and see. But if you were quite political, and, you know, it was all about the country's views at the time and its regional corners. Obviously, I was East Midlands. And that was, if you were really interested in the politics of the country, and you were open to theatre in its different forms, it was so a show for you.
Yeah, it was. I remember I didn't know much about the show. All I knew was it was called My Country, and I was thinking, okay, what's that all about? And and as you say there, so for anyone who didn't see the show or didn't see it on TV, it was the show called My Country, a Work in Progress. It was a verbatim piece all about the country's reaction to the EU referendum result when we decided to, when the vote was to leave the European Union. So as soon as that vote happened, Rufus sent out some scouts to every corner of the country and basically said, just tell us about your opinion. If you want to tell us how you voted, great. If you don't want to, it's fine. But people gave their information to the National, saying, this is why I voted to remain, this is why I voted to leave. And essentially, Seema, Laura, Penny, Cavan, Christian, and Stuart, I think that's all the cast.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. All had a series of voices, and Seema was representing the East Midlands. And I remember you were given like little audio clips or tapes or stuff like that. And for anyone who doesn't know what verbatim theatre is, you're basically recreating a situation with the exact words which were used in that particular situation. So the script was essentially everyone's interview, that they gave to the National. So everything you heard came from the mouth of another person. It wasn't us, it wasn't Rufus or Carol Ann Duffy editing it. It was exactly what was said. And yeah, it was really interesting, because I remember thinking in rehearsal, saying, how is this going to be? It'd be really interesting to see how people react to this, because the show was so full of differing opinions, you know, whether to remain or voting to leave. So when you were sort of engaging with your characters from the East Midlands, because I think every character had arguments for both remain and to leave. When you were trying to get their voices, you know, what did you think of their opinions like, and what did you sort of get from them as an actor?
Well, I remember playing two very controversial characters. One was an Asian man called Narinder, who, if I remember correctly, wasn't for, you know, he'd voted leave. Same as another character I played, whose name I can't remember. She was a white woman who was very open and honest about the fact that, you know, I walk out in the street and actually I just see loads of brown voices, and I think, where are my community and where have they gone? And I don't want Leicester to be like that. And Narinder was someone who was saying, well, you know, in fact, some of his verbatim's coming back to me. Basically, his whole argument was around if I'm right, he was saying, you know, I remember him saying things like, you know, there's my flag, my black flag's flying there, and what are all the white people going to think about it? You know,
right.
At the time of rehearsal, the challenge was not only to learn their words word for word, but it was also to find their voices in your own voice. Because don't forget, when you're playing 9 or 10 different characters, your voice quality needs to change so the audience know you've swapped. But as an actor, what was quite interesting is every time you change your voice to play Narinder or Linda or whoever else, something happens to your body, and the way your body language changes when you're playing that voice. So you then start to develop several characterizations in the way you carry yourself, and, you know, hold your body, the way you position your head, you know, the way you might shape your backbone. And so within East Midlands, who was the representative of East Midlands and playing all these voices, you also then become all these mini little characters, which is quite a lovely process to feel your body take on. So going back to your original question, a lot of the views that were expressed were not a surprise to me. In my own family, half of my family had voted leave, half had voted remain. And, you know, all of that, you know, well, we came here as immigrants and we've done well for ourselves. But what are these immigrants? Are they coming here to work hard? How are they going to share the resources that are already so stretched? You know, I can't get an appointment at my doctor's surgery, and now all these other immigrants are coming in. And that was a weird conversation to have with those members of family, because you'd say, well, you were an immigrant and the same questions at the time were being targeted to you. You're here, you're going to start sharing our resources, you're going to take our jobs. Why are you coming here? And here you are now preventing other people for, like, you know, coming in. But yeah, I suppose the whole what's weird is, at the time, people just thought my country would become flooded with lots of other immigrants. And actually the sad factor now is that there's so many services that are now dying because you know, people have left from feeling completely unwelcome here, which is so sad.
Incredible.
You know, the health service, obviously teachers, we're in a scarcity now, aren't we, of employees on the ground, because so much of the workforce has left and either gone back home or gone to other countries where they feel more welcome.
It was a very interesting process, like, because one of my jobs was to sit up in the director's office and kind of sift through the audio tape. So like you, I was listening to these voices again and again and again and again. thinking, okay, that bit sounds good. Oh, that's really good. Well, we've got to get that in somehow.
Oh
And
yes, I remember.
yeah, I think there was one rehearsal where Rufus sent me away to actually find some news clips and stuff, and I think I showed them to you guys. I managed to connect up to the TV, and I showed you, and sifting through all this stuff, and found myself willingly listening to a certain Boris Johnson or Michael Gove or someone like that, and they're making all these pledges, and I'm thinking it was so bizarre. Actually, the best one was I remember listening to David Cameron. He gave, this is an exact interview. It's still on YouTube. If anyone wants to check it out. He said essentially, whatever happens with the vote, whether we leave or whether we stay, I'm still going to be your prime minister.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yes, it didn't work like that, did it?
No. No. How weird. But yeah, I remember showing you guys, and just collectively, I think yourself, and I remember seeing Laura at one point just go,
Yeah. Well, you see, the thing is, as a bunch of actors at the time, we were all Remainers.
yeah, yeah.
And what was really hard, one thing we were told, I remember Rufus sitting us down and saying, do you know what? There were a lot of people that didn't get this job. And the reason is that if I had an actor that came in and was very opinionated about why it should be either leave or remain, he goes, that really put me off them. Because you have to be objective, despite whatever your own beliefs are. You're going to play a series of voices. Your loyalty is to what they are saying. You are meant to just be mirroring all of these opinions, and your own should not be part of this process. So when you bring in those clips of like David Cameron and various politicians, as people, we'd sometimes hang our head in shame at the whole, where are we going? But I think that controversy, and don't forget, every time we'd go do a show, well, not every time, there were several places, usually on the first night at a venue, where there'd be a Q&A. And oh my God, those Q&As were long, because it was almost like a question time. You had opened up this whole forum where the audience is sat in front of you. They've just seen this piece, and it would fire them up, I remember our time in Ireland, and Northern Ireland, being very fiery, going to the bar afterwards, and people would literally corner you, almost like, well, what have you done? And, what have you kind of done by putting this piece on? You've kind of, everyone's on fire, and everyone now needs to argue and talk, which is a great thing. But, that when you ignite people like that and hear their political views, it's an explosion rather than a kind of careful and considered conversation. There were lots of bombs that used to go off in those Q&As afterwards, with people saying, well, do you agree, or do you, or whose side are you on? And we'd have to reel them back and go, look, back to the show.
It's just a show.
These are the opinions. All right, good to hear where you sit, but this is kind of collectively as a nation where we're at. So it was an amazing experience, and to work with Norris on something completely new, non-scripted, that evolved and then became a UK tour.
What I'm just curious to know, like, when you went around the country, did you get anyone, like, the reactions you said in the bar afterwards, but did anything happen during a show? Did you get any audience participation that was unexpected?
Yes, I remember being in Cardiff, and I remember being heckled. Some of the Asian characters I play being heckled,
right?
And they were obviously leavers, because I got heckled it wasn't nice. It wasn't overtly threatening, but every time the Asian characters would speak, they'd start talking. And I remember feeling completely safe and fine about it, because I'm a big believer that, I think that's why I'm an actor. I like to inspire and you know, I like to cajole our audiences into really thinking about, well, where do I sit with this? But I remember the cast being very protective and saying, Seema, you know, are you okay? They shouldn't have reacted like that. And feeling really angry at the fact that whilst we were performing, there was this tension, this kind of racist tension in the room. But I'd say that was the only place where I experienced that. But always felt, you know, protected because I was with such a good bunch of people.
Yeah. I'm sorry you went through that, because that's just, you know, talking during a performance. You mean, and then that's
Oliver, you know,
yeah.
even during the whole vote, you know, I'd had some very weird reactions from people generally around me. I remember I'm not someone who's had really experienced racism in my life. And I think that's because I was really fortunate that where I grew up in Nottingham, it was quite a white middle class area where at the time people were being taught to respect difference rather than, you know, it isn't generally parents were educated enough to teach their children about, you know, understanding others rather than creating separation. So I'd never really experienced racism.
That's good.
Growing up. And then I went to Birmingham University, and Birmingham's very Asian. So if anything, I was an Indian girl trying to get away from the Indian crowds because I was like, oh my God, I'm not used to so many Asian people around me. So that was another weird experience. But during the whole vote for Leave or Remain, I remember a cyclist going past me and knocking the back of my head with a, oi, you packy, because suddenly all of that kind of tension of what are you doing here was allowed to play. And I remember hurling some abuse at him. And I remember he cycled off. There were lots of little things like that happened. There'd be call outs and little things like that, and which surprised my kids too, because they've never, you know, London's so multicultural, you're not really used to being called out for being different because we all respect that here. I remember trying to explain to them, well, you know, that there are obviously people that want, you know, who maybe don't want to see more people of color arrive in this country, or they're not happy with that. I remember those being quite tricky conversations. But the time of the vote was the one of the only times in my life when I've felt racism in this country, I'd say.
Yeah, well, they're just assholes.
Yes,
assholes.
But what an interesting process also to witness. I just felt like, you know, it's like the spider webs came out of people's closets. It's like suddenly you saw the dirt in their closet, and they were happy to show you a little bit of that.
I mean, going back to what you were saying about the experiences like in the bar afterwards and stuff, you know, I remember I was working in a pub around the corner at the time. I won't say the names of the people, but there was some conversations down there around the time of the vote where people were saying, oh, we've got to leave because of this, we've got to leave because of that. And I hate to say it, but the bottom line of the whole argument really was immigration. And
and that's why my character East Midlands in the show, I think they needed to really cast that right, because immigration, the place that had the biggest problem with immigration was the East Midlands, and Leicester particularly, because it's so Asian. Leicester is very multicultural, predominantly Asian, and immigration was the one issue that really divided people.
You know,
like I said, you know, a whole bunch of brown people saying it's wrong for other people to come here who've been immigrants themselves, you know. So that was weird, you know. I mean, my parents are immigrants, and even in my family, to a degree, there was like, well, who are we going to get coming in?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I remember just conversations going on about, I had to shut a conversation down one time because there was a white person in front of some fellas from India trying to express his views. And I think it was kind of someone who wasn't aware of what he was saying. And I had to go over and just say, look, I've got nothing wrong with you having an opinion, but turn the volume down and change the subject, please, because this is not the space for this sort of conversation. And they did eventually just sort of move on, but I'd saying, come on, guys, come on, it's not appropriate right now. But no, but that's interesting. And just remind me of your characters again from My Country. I mean, you spoke about one of them just now. Who were the other ones that you played?
Oh, I can't remember now, Oliver. It was years ago. But Narendra was the biggie. He was like, I got to meet him actually after one of the shows.
Did you?
Yeah, and despite his opinions, he's the sweetest man.
All right.
And he was so pleased that his opinions had been part of the show.
Amazing.
I mean, you know, some of what he said wasn't, you know, it wasn't all wrong. And he had this really lovely, gravelly, you know, I remember having to play really kind of low. I remember him having that. But when I met him, he was, just really, you just wanted to hug him.
Yeah, lovable.
That was lovely. That was lovely.
Great.
Yeah, I met a couple of the people who I played, which that was a little bit, a little bit tense, but they were lovely. And in fact, they were more nervous than me because they're like, oh, you're going to put a face to the name now.
I've been playing you up and down the country.
Well, they knew that obviously before they committed, but anyway.
Yeah. You made them, hello. I can see them going, wait, were you taking the piss out of me? Like, no.
A lot of them were just, well, I just don't know how you changed all those voices, you know, and you know, I suppose a lot of them were just intrigued in the art of how you play that as an actor.
Yeah, fantastic. So just going to like the process of that show, because I remember talking to yourselves in a cafe sort of on breaks and lunchtime and stuff. And it was quite I remember speaking to Christian about it and Laura, and it seemed like obviously the show came together in the end, and you know, I remember seeing it, and you know, you guys did a fantastic job, but like the journey to that seemed to be quite a long and arduous process. I mean, because it was devised, it was built from scratch. So how were those rehearsal days, and how did you get through days where you were just trying things and you're thinking, oh God, nothing seems to be working? So how did you get through all that? The process of the show, what was it like?
Do you know what? As an actor, I would just say it was a really fun time to play. Because don't forget, you know, the final responsibility was Rufus's. It was his name on the program, which said director. And obviously, Carol Duffy, you know, she was going to be, it was her name. I think I called her Caroline earlier. I think that's just dawned on me. I called her Caroline earlier.
Yeah.
You know, they were great. For us, we were just told they would come in with an idea and we were just told to play. And you know, as an actor, what a fun thing that is to do. Yeah. You know, you're given certain character. I mean, I remember when we were developing East Midlands, and I think Rufus wanted East Midlands to be like this. I remember him saying, oh yeah, you know, she's got cleaners at home, she's got children, and actually she's this kind of power woman who you know, gets things done, but like delegates. She's like a mother businesswoman. And I was like, I don't see East Midlands like that. But I remember playing that character and then you know, having a play around with that. And also, like I said, you know, we had like a big dance in it, and Rufus at one point wanted to make it a Bollywood number, and I was like, no, don't go down that route just because you've got Asian voices on stage and now making this Indian Bollywood Bhangra production, because sometimes that makes me cringe. And thank God he came back from that. But again, we'd given it a little go and we'd played. So yeah, for us as actors, it was a playground. And it was up to them to have the stresses of, oh my God, you know, how are we going to make this a story and make it gel?
Yeah.
I remember Rufus coming in with a few stress lines on his forehead in the mornings. But no, for us, it was just completely fun. For me, I remember there were a lot of train journeys of just listening and remembering. And I remember learning all my characters, traveling on tube. I mean, in fact, as an actor, I do learn a lot of my lines when I'm traveling. I just find the kind of motion of travel. It doesn't matter that people are around me, and it's just me on my own. It really helps me remember lines.
Yeah, hugely. And in terms of like how you actually got the voices for it, and what's your process of learning? Is it all about the rhythm? Is it all about, like, do you prioritize rhythm, pitch, or the sound? Because all are important, but which
Well,
sort of
yeah, I mean, we were
first?
very lucky. We had some of the voice coaches at the National, because I remember when I was playing Narendra, I was kind of playing him very, and they were like, "You're going to kill your voice. You're going to damage your voice." So technically, we had backup.
Okay.
But I mean, I guess even in the business of podcast, you must listen back to your voice and go, "God, I didn't know that kind of rhythm," and oh God,
Yeah.
how we all
Who's this guy?
yeah, you slightly wince at your voice, but actually, that's how when you hear someone's voice on an interview, particularly an interview, you make your mind up about the kind of person that they are through their kind of speech patterns, where they speed up, how they pause. You start to, in your head, imagine a certain personality. And I think when you're doing verbatim, you're mirroring the pauses, or when they elongate words. But within that, you start to also give that person a character that you're slightly playing, to kind of divorce them from you. But I think it starts off very technically, where you're listening to the voice and you're trying to learn the script in their way, in their manner of delivering it. And then once your body takes that on and you start to learn it, then your body starts to become, it makes all these weird changes, and you feel yourself going from one character to another. At least I did, because I'm quite a physical actress, so I really like to find the body shape of all my characters, as well as their voices, which is something I had to be very conscious of when we did Little English, because I had to age up for that film. So yeah. But anyway.
Yeah. Good stuff. So what would you say was, for anyone going into Verbatim, what would you say was like a piece of advice that you'd wish you knew before you started the project, or what was like the biggest thing that you took away from that experience?
Oh gosh, didn't think you'd ask me that. I think it's like anything, isn't it? It's just being open. I mean, verbatim theatre is, I guess it's different in the sense that you're representing real people. I did a show years ago called Come Out Eli, and that was my first experience of verbatim. I think I was so conscious, and even when I did My Country, conscious that I was representing real people.
Yeah.
And there's a real joy and responsibility, actually, that these aren't just a writer's words, and they've kind of artistically processed them and played with them in a certain way. These are real people and they're real words.
Yeah.
So I think it's just that joy of representing that on stage.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
That you have to enjoy and feel very loyal to, even if you don't agree with the opinions that you're voicing. You are a mirror to someone's voice, and you're amplifying that on stage.
Yeah. And just, I remember thinking about like the long days that you guys did as well, because I remember we used to start, because when I think this was during your on tour, you stopped in Birmingham for a week, and while you were there, you shot the BBC Two adaptation. I remember I was with you guys from say 7 o'clock in the morning until like 7 at night, and then you guys would be whisked off to go do the show at the Birmingham New Theatre just up the road. So I remember you guys. Sorry. And it was like all day for you guys. How did you get through like those? I think Kristen said that you guys were doing like 14, 15-hour days at one point.
Yeah, we were. I think that, if I'm honest, that part of the tour was really hard.
Yeah.
But we had been told that that's the way it would be. We just had to look after each other, I think. But then, as a jobbing actor, I think there was also something about us that really thrived and enjoyed on the fact that we were working, doing something that we love.
Yeah.
because it was very intense, and it all brought us closer together. I think we enjoyed the fact that we were actors and privileged to be part of such an amazing project, but also there was that kind of legal side of that we were all very conscious of, that as actors we're all part of equity in the union, and that we are able to do our best work, that we're getting regular breaks, and in some ways the production was quite sensitive to that, but I think that's because Rufus was directing. I know that our stage managers back at theatre were sometimes quite wary of energy levels, and were we going to be too tired to do the show that night. But we always delivered. So there were some anxieties around that process, but ultimately, we're all pretty hardcore, and we just have to get on with it.
But I really felt for you guys. I really did. I was thinking, God, how have they just done a day of filming and now they're going to go and do a show? And it was,
I think if we had to learn brand new material for the film, I think it would have been painful. But the fact that we were already on the road with the verbatim, it was already learnt, and that was now being adapted to screen, it changed. Well, you were using the same material, but you were then having to apply a different skill set, i.e. screen. And that isn't a bad jump to make if the material's already in your psyche. I think it made feeling tired was okay because we were already on top of the material. If you had to learn stuff in film, like you do in TV and film, where you're literally learning and then you're filming, I think that on top of doing theatre is incredibly hard. Probably out the worst side in you.
No, but you guys did a great job. You guys really held it down and showed them how it's done. So I'm just thinking about it's just the reaction to it and everything. It really was a really important show, I think, for a matter of reasons. The politics, the position of us where we were at the time. Obviously, our position on Brexit is still unclear all these years later. But just one last thing on this part of your CV, which is what would you say the whole experience, from day one of rehearsal, like you leaving, like your backstory, you're stepping into the business again, playing around in the rehearsal room, going on tour with it, filming in the day, and then performing at night. That whole experience of working on My Country, a Work in Progress. What do you think it gave you, and what did it take away, and what did it leave behind?
Oh gosh, well, once an actor, always an actor. It was very easy to step back into that role. I loved it. I loved feeling the freedom of being an artist again. It gave me a break from motherhood, but also it made me value everyone at home. My children at that point were learning to become more independent. It was good for them to see mum work. Because sometimes mum just becomes mum at home. And suddenly when it's very weird having kids who most of the time, we don't really talk about me being an actor at home because I'm quite grounded like that, Oliver. I don't save lives. We're storytellers, aren't we?
We are.
And I don't really let my kids become too swept away by fame and look at that person, because we're all people, at the end of the day. But when your children suddenly see you on screen or stage, it always slightly takes their breath away, because my lot are all science, maths orientated. They don't really understand the creative process to put something on from page to screen or stage. So when that shebang opens, they're always a bit shocked. They're quite used to me being stupid and messing about. But since I did My Country, I've played quite a few older characters. I'm quite good at playing the older women, like the old women. And there's always an element of mum, can't quite take you seriously because they can see me in that part. But equally, they'll be like, but who was that woman that you were playing? And how do you do that? How do you become someone else? So, and it's lovely to play to that kind of awe of, So yeah, your question about my country, it definitely it put me back in the driving seat as an actor again. And then after that, I didn't really stop. I carried on because I thought, well, I can do the juggle. It works.
Yeah, it's like a spark that reignited.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And I guess the good thing about being a parent and being an actor is that, you know, it makes that sitting by the phone to ring a lot easier, I would say, because, you know, as a parent, you know, your job is also always to balance the ship, make sure everyone's got a bit of what they need. And so that distraction is always really good, I think, as an actor, because otherwise those gaps between the jobs can drive you mad.
Yeah.
I think things do change. I'm also at the age now where I'm going up for less. There's not as much written for kind of actresses in their 40s. You know, as an Asian woman, I'm finding there's less to play. So I think those gaps probably become trickier in that sense.
Yeah.
Which is why a lot of actors turn to writing and directing themselves. But yeah, I think I really appreciated the juggle and I liked it. So I've carried on.
Yeah, hugely. And I'm sure there's more parts out there than you think. I'm sure.
Well, we keep going, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. What's that? 10 minutes. Okay, cool. So let's cool. So let's jump into Little English then. Let's jump into that. So tell us about Little English. It's a film that's out in cinemas. It'll be on demand at some point in the future. Yeah, tell us about it.
Well, I'm the only actor in that film that's had to age up. And again, there's less of a backstory, and I'm going to talk more about the fear of being an actor, actually. So I know Pravesh Kumar, the director, very well. I did a show called Dishoom because he also runs a theatre company called Rifco. And this is his first feature film as a director. So it was low budget. There was hardly any money in it. And he basically asked us individually as a cast if we'd do it. He'd done a stage play called There's Something About Sunita a few years ago. And that's the play that was then adapted for screen and became Little English. So I play the mother, the matriarch, not patriarch, matriarch of the family. Always get confused between those two. And he just couldn't find anyone to play it. Now I'm a character actress. I think that's my forte.
Yeah.
I've talked a little bit about my process of kind of approaching characters quite physically. I like to get their shape. I like to establish the kind of rhythm that they speak in. Maybe that's why actors like me are also drawn to things like verbatim theatre, because the attention to detail is in all of the patterns that various people use. But we all do that as actors, don't we? We all observe other people and we take on their mannerisms vocally and physically.
Yeah, well, people.
Anyway, yeah. So he came to me. I remember, and this is during COVID. This all happened during COVID.
Yeah.
I did a Zoom audition, and you know as well as I do that auditioning on Zoom is weird, but you know you value it because you can carry on working. And he'd say things like, "Don't move around so much. Make her more stoic." And I'd go, "Oh, okay." So I was kind of, you know, he got me to do various different things. And I, in my head, thought, she's a 60-year-old woman. You know, I'm in my late 40s. I said, there's no way. But then the phone rang again and he said, we want you to come and do a screen test. And I remember that day meeting the lead actress, who's Ramit Rowley, and the other actor playing my son. And I just couldn't. Viraj is the other who plays my younger son, and Viraj was auditioning. Ramit had already been cast, and I thought, hold on a minute, they're perfect for those roles. They are exactly those parts. I'm nothing like Gurbaksh, the mother. She's her story is that she, like I said, her daughter, and she's forced her elder son to get married, have this wedding in India. You know, she comes over and you know, before you know, Simi comes over, and then I lock her up in the house because I don't want people to know that my son's run away. I don't want her to tell anyone. I lock away her passport. I'm doing everything I can to try and find him. My younger one's come back home too. He's been in prison for so long. So anyway, just in terms of the playing of this character, you know, a lot is said in her silences as well as what she says. She's got a real gravitas. She's almost like a little bit of an army general in that family. But she has her moments of you know, erupting, but it's her presence in that film, I think, that was really important to get right. The kind of aura she creates in the family. And I just couldn't, if I'm honest, I could not see I didn't see how I was going to get there. The day I had my screen test, I walked away and I said to God, I don't want this job. I really don't want it because I don't know if I'll be able to find it.
Yeah.
So I think that's when it's that fight or flight, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you get handed a part, which you go, this is really exciting. It's a lovely script, but can I do it?
Yeah.
And I'm a bit of a perfectionist in whatever I go in for. And I put a lot of pressure on myself, like a lot of us do. But you know, if you tell yourself, I can't play that, I'm nothing like her. I'm not, you know, I'm never mind the right age. I don't even know if my character actress skills can even get me there. But then 2 weeks later, I got the job, and of course I accepted, because I thought, well, I'm going to kick myself if I don't take the challenge.
Yeah. Go for it.
And again, you know, I was with an amazing bunch of actors. You know, I've got Goldie Note, who plays my older daughter. Amit Chana plays my son-in-law. We've got an amazing cast of actors. And obviously Pravesh I'd worked with before. And yeah, we all chucked ourselves in, and, you know, I did a lot of prep. I even had a couple of one-to-one classes with a screen director, because I just said to her, and I didn't know her particularly well. And I said to her, I said, you know, I just need to get into a different headset, because this is for screen. And I've only ever aged up for stage. So I need to make sure that presence on screen, all those nuances, I get them right. So I probably started prepping about 2 months before, in the middle of COVID, which was easy because we were all sat at home. There was a lot of recording of myself and trying to work out what is it I do, where the character development was going. And that's a good thing about screen. I think, you know, we've all got mobile phones that we record ourselves on. We're all used to doing self-tape. So that process of trying to play your character in a certain way and then playing it back and going, no, you know, speaking too quickly, or you're just not still enough, or what does that stillness look like? And, you know, that was the prep for me. And I think from all the feedback I've had so far that it's paid off.
Yeah, absolutely it does. You know, even I've only seen the trailer so far, but, you know, you really do create a real aura of your character, you know, from that, even for just, like I said, I haven't seen the whole thing yet, but for that split second, you know, I could see everything you've done in just one look that you gave to your other actors.
Oh, Oliver, you make me feel so nervous. Yeah,
no,
I think
no. It's meant as a compliment.
No, I mean, I've done the job now. I don't know why. I find it quite hard when so I'm going to go to, I'm at Pinewood Studios on Saturday.
Nice.
Doing the Q&A after the showing of the film there. And I always, dare I say, I always feel very proud of myself, but also so privileged to be part of that process. Because, you know, I think for me as an actor, why I do this is I love to collaborate.
Yeah.
You know, you're with a good bunch of actors, a great creative team, and it's, you know, you can't make anything a success by yourself. It really is all those fingers that have gone in the pies that have made that pie.
That's right.
You know, so, but I always feel so proud when people go, did you play Gurbakhsh? You look nothing like her. Or you sound nothing like her. And there is a part of me that goes, you know, there is something in me that can create something that's outside of myself.
Yeah. I think that's the greatest compliment you can give any actor, sort of saying, wait, which one were you? And Yeah.
Well, you know, we launched at the BFI, and I've got to tell you a little funny story. But, you know, I remember being there with Ramit and Viraj,
Yeah.
like I said, who are the leads, and Pravesh. And we were at the red carpet launch, and I was there in this beautiful blue dress that's like strapless. I had my hair done, and I wasn't getting any interviews. I just wasn't getting any press interviews because we were all on the edge of the red carpet. I did a couple of kind of ones that had lined up for me, but I wasn't getting anyone forthcoming. And it didn't bother me because I had a glass of champagne in my hand and essentially I was there to have a good time.
Yeah.
But it's only, we then had the film, and I remember my family being there. I was really nervous about that. In fact, that's what I was thinking about for most of the night, that they were going to be watching me and I hadn't really told them much about it. I had 15 members of my family there, at BFI that night. And anyway, afterwards in the Q&A, Pravesh made me stand up in front of my audience and say, and this is Seema Bowri. And a lot of those interviewers came up to me afterwards and just went, oh my God, is this you? And I at that point realized that when you look at me, you have no idea who I am, and or know that I'm even part of this. I think I look like a straggler on. As in, well, who's this person standing? I don't know. She's not even part of the film. I haven't seen her in anything. I love that. You know, I love the fact nobody really connects me to the film until they've seen it, and then they go, "Oh God!"
Oh yeah.
Because you know, even my voice had to change for that film. You know, we decided to make her register really low, and just to give her that kind of heavy kind of, you know, I've got this padded bra on slightly to give me a more padded chest, because I just wanted a more filled upper body. I saw this woman as quite broad. I tried to make her as broad as I could, and you know, kind of tried to give her wide hips a little bit, you know. But you know the actor process. You see this body image in your head, and you kind of want to transform yourself into that. So yeah, that's kind of been the process, really.
Fantastic. Amazing. I can't wait to see it. Do you have time just for one final question?
I've got literally a couple of minutes. Yes.
Okay, cool. But I'll get this in really quickly. First of all, yeah, I love you. I can't wait to see this film, and you know, your work on My Country Work in Progress. And just from that trailer, I will get to see the film. You know, it shows the work that you do is amazing. I can tell just from that 2-minute clip that you've really got something really special with his character. And you know, I'm not saying that just because I know you and I've seen your work, but I'm looking at it thinking, wow, I really want to see you do this, because not only is it, you know, if I may say, like a challenge for yourself to play older, you know, but you know, just to see your work there and everything you put into it, and like the process, like you just described it, you know, I can't wait to see it. I know you do some amazing work, Seema. So yeah.
Oh, Oliver, well, look, you know, I think, you know, as creatives, you know, as long as we keep supporting each other, you know, and we all go through our own process when we play certain characters, and it always, you know, when you hear that other actors are like mean, or, you know, sometimes, as you know, the rehearsal process can be unkind because, you know, energies don't kind of gel, and it makes an actor's work, you know, really hard. And I think I've been so lucky generally in my career that I've never not got on with someone in any of the casts that I've been part of.
That's good. That's lucky.
And yeah, because I think otherwise that hinders you, and it gets in the way, because you know how it is. You become a tortoise. You go into shell for a little bit while you kind of work out what you're going to do and how you're going to play it.
It's not fun, but
no, not at all. So the fact, you know, thank you so much for and even going to see the film. And I really hope that I can support you too. Let me know what you're in.
Absolutely. No, you'll be the first to know. You'll be the first
to tell me. Absolutely.
I will do. We've got a mate, Abdullah Khan. You need to do, hopefully we'll do some more stuff together with him. That was good.
Okay. Yeah. I did
Find the Light, yeah?
Yes, Find the Light, where
that was really good. Really good performance.
Yeah, I mean, that was I mean, I could sit here and talk to you about that for hours. That was a weird one in the middle.
Let's do a part two. Let's do a part two talking about
Yeah, you should ask him, because I nearly didn't do that job, and then 2 days before they rang my agent and went, please, can she do it? Because well, COVID and rehearsal and how was that going to work? And literally I went, yeah, okay, yeah, happy, I'll walk. And he was great. He's such a lovely, lovely, gentle soul.
Yeah, and he's
Abdullah, he's lovely. So yeah, we should all do something together.
Yeah, amazing man. I'm a very talented man as well. Cool. I just got one final question for you. I know time is against us, but this is the final question for every guest, which is, what's been an experience or experiences you've had in your career up to this point that you're never ever going to forget?
Do you know what I'm going to say? I've had so many, but the most recent one is what I'm doing at the moment.
With
and
Little
I think that's because I've, we talk about this as the cast when we do Q&As, that this film is very special because we're all Punjabis.
Mm-hmm.
And we're all Brit Punjabis. So when we all read the script and were directed in it, we never really had to have any conversations about those nuances of why this family behaves the way it does. And why I'm never going to forget this experience is because it's been so intimate. It's not something that's so massive that you don't feel like you're in control of. Like Lee, our cameraman, literally sat down with me on day one and went, this is what you look like in high definition. This is, and I remember my bare face. And actually, I remember saying to him and Pravesh that first day, I don't need a lot of makeup. The kind of age and experience of this character is going to come from how she carries herself, not from physically aging her and putting lines and giving her a wig. I said, it's not going to be that. This is going to be really, and they were in agreement with me. But again, I think why I'm going to remember it is because I'm playing something that's so far removed from myself. And also it's my first feature. It's my first feature film.
Amazing.
So, and to be such a big part of it is such a privilege.
Yeah.
So, but I would also definitely say I never will forget my time at the National, and I want to return there because it's a very special place. You meet so many other actors who are doing other shows. Do you remember before every show, everybody would clap in the foyer in the middle? Were you ever there? So backstage at the National, where all the dressing rooms are, there's like this outdoor foyer that runs in the middle of all the dressing rooms. And on your last night, all the actors from the other shows come out and they clap and hoot you.
Really?
And it's so supportive and it's so lovely.
Wow.
You kind of feel in that building that you're in not just another actor, but you're a whole building of creatives, and you feel like you're home. You feel like you're on planet creatives where you belong. Whereas out there sometimes you can get a few odd looks.
Oh yeah, several.
Yeah, especially when you're learning your lines on the train and people's looking at you thinking, oh, what a weird looking to themselves. But so that's definitely the National. Also, I'm looking to go back. I want to find a way back.
Oh, you and me both. Yeah, but
I'll see you there, love.
Yes,
let's find it.
But this has been so much fun, Seema. Thank you for today. Thank you for experiences. Sharing your experience. Sorry, I can't wait to see Little English, and keep me posted.
Yeah, let me know what you think. Even if you don't like it, it's fine. We're all allowed to not like
stuff. I'm sure I will. It's all good. Anyway, cool. If you just hang on, I'll finish the recording. I'll say goodbye to you one-to-one. And cool. Okay. So, guys, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. This has been the Uncensored Critic podcast, and I'll be back very soon. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And once again, Miss Seema Bowri, thank you.
Thank you. Woohoo!